Donald J. Trump, born June 14, 1946, Queens, New York. Donald grew up in the family of a successful real estate developer. He didn't exactly start in the mailroom of his father, Fred's company. He started at the top of the family business, which in 1974 was already worth $200 million. In today's dollars, that translates to a $1 billion business. But Trump claims he didn't have it easy. After all, when he launched his own real estate business,
it has not been easy for me. And, I started off in Brooklyn. My father gave me a small loan of $1 million. I came into Manhattan, and I had to pay him back, and I had to pay him back with interest. But I came into Manhattan, I started buying up properties, and I did great. And then I built the Grand Hyatt, and I got involved with the convention. So I did a good job. But I was always told that would never work. Even my father, he said, "You don't want to go to Manhattan."
Donald Trump was not content to do what everyone else was doing. And he set out to make sure the rest of his life would be memorable. And he succeeded. His life became crazy and entertaining enough to Americans to wind up on the tabloids a lot. In 1977, he married Czechoslovakian skier and model Ivana Selenkova, who claimed to have been an alternate on the 1968 Czech Olympic ski team. When contacted, however, the head of the Czechoslovakian Olympic ski team said they had searched many times and had no record of an Ivana ever being part of their team. And so it seemed then a perfect match, made in PR heaven. In 1980, Tom Brokaw did a segment on this up-and-coming developer on NBC News.
This is Donald Trump, 33 years old, and some people think that he wants to buy the World Trade Center, the 110-story Manhattan skyscraper that anyone can pick up if they've got the coins.
Clearly, Donald Trump had big ambitions even then. By 1980, he wanted to buy the World Trade Center. He wanted to buy the Empire State Building. He was building the Trump Tower, and he had married his first trophy wife. Coupling that with all of the massive wealth his father had accrued, along with the wealth Donald added onto, the world was paying close attention to Donald J. Trump. And there were rumors, circulating often, that there were women in his life. A lot of them. Women other than his wife, Ivana. The fact is, Trump openly bragged about sleeping with many women, both single and married, during that time period. During the 1980s, Trump closed enough deals in real estate and with women that he had written his best-selling book, The Art of the Deal, which he calls the best-selling business book of all time. It isn't. But Donald J. Trump had gained enough notoriety that Milton Bradley developed and released a board game bearing his name.
My new game is Trump, the game.
Trump, the game where you deal for everything you've ever wanted to own. Because it's not whether you win or lose, it's whether you win.
Yes!
Play Trump, the game from Milton Bradley.
I think you'll like it.
Due to dismal sales, the game was discontinued the next year. In 1990, rumors of affairs turned into facts about affairs. Although in an interview with Barbara Walters, Trump called former Georgia beauty queen Marla Maples just a friend.
Marla Maples is a friend. I have a lot of friends. Did it hasten the breakup? Absolutely. In my opinion, absolutely not. The breakup was going to occur. And I'm not going to disparage Ivana. You'll never hear me disparage Ivana for one reason. She's the mother of my children. I'm not disparaging. But you grow apart.
Ivana apparently felt the friendship was a little too friendly. And when she ran into Maples in Colorado during a family Christmas vacation, it turned into a nasty and highly publicized confrontation on the ski slopes of Aspen in 1991. After 14 years and 3 children together, the couple divorced in 1992. Meanwhile, the two friends, Donald and Marla, had a baby together in October 1993 and were married December of that year. The 90s were a turbulent time for Trump. Business deals soured, his debt grew to massive proportions. More on that later. And his romance and marriage to Marla became very rocky. In fact, according to singer Michael Bolton, at one point, the Donald and Marla had apparently broken up. So Bolton began dating her. When Trump got wind of it, he became outraged and for a short time took her back. So Bolton couldn't have her. The reunion didn't last long. In the meantime, legendary British television personality Selena Scott came to New York to do a documentary on him. He was apparently quite taken with her, at first. Scott wrote, "We were at 30,000 feet on Trump's private jet flying to Florida when he showed me his white leather double bed. I like beautiful things," he purred seductively. "That is why I like you so much." Scott wasn't interested in Trump's advances, and the documentary she produced wasn't as glowing as Donald had hoped. She immediately paid the price. Quote, "Basically, he lost control, and I think that because he realized he couldn't charm me into portraying him the way he wanted to be portrayed, he called me a loser. He said I was sleazy, that I had come on to him, asking him for dates." It seems that everyone who doesn't flatter Donald Trump has, at one time or another, either been in his office begging him for money or stalking him wherever he goes, begging for dates and sex. Scott wound up paying a huge price for her rebuff on Trump for the next 20 years.
What kind of approaches did he make to you?
Well, it started off with letters. I mean, letters which repeated, really kind of childish things. He started off rubbishing my looks. Then he started questioning my morality. Then he went into my career. And I used to have a big file and drop them into the kind of a Trump box. That was my way of kind of dealing with him. The letters started tailing off. And then he began sending me press cuttings of himself, Trump riding high, and then written across it, scrawled across it, "Dear Selena, you're a loser."
Does any of this sound familiar? It should, because the Fox News anchor Megyn Kelly said she had a very similar experience with Trump. First, he was a huge fan that sent her clippings and told her how great and beautiful she was. Then, after the first debate, she was a loser with no talent.
You could see there was blood coming out of her eyes. Blood coming out of her wherever.
Trump eventually went on to the Howard Stern show to discuss other exploits.
I want to explore the various women you're dating. I have pictures.
Explore them in what sense?
Because I want to look at pictures of them. Okay. I have exercise videos of Marla Maples.
The originals?
I have great stuff. Right. I've got all different pictures of the models. Then we'll evaluate the different models.
And we'll choose the best.
And we will choose the best ones.
Trump and Marla Maples separated in 1997, divorced in 99. The same year he met his current wife, Melania. The two were married in 2004. The Donald's profile continued to grow in 2003 when NBC put his show The Apprentice on the air. During an episode of The Celebrity Apprentice, Trump, never known for being overly respectful to women, created quite a stir with this comment.
Brandy came in here, she got down on her knees and said, "I passionately want to do this. I, at this point, am the team chooser, not the team leader yet."
Excuse me, you dropped to your knees?
Yes. And begged to do this. And I said, I'm looking around the room, and we had even LaToya, who sat beside me, thought maybe Brandy was right.
Must be a pretty picture you dropped into your knees.
Dennis.
His excuse for being so crass, disrespectful, and sexist was that the comment was taken out of context. There does seem to be a pattern with Donald Trump attacking women. In 2006, Trump and Rosie O'Donnell became entangled in a highly publicized battle over the internet and talk shows, during which Trump referred to her as, quote, a fat pig, and slob, end quote, and a host of other unflattering adjectives.
Rosie O'Donnell's disgusting. I mean, both inside and out. You take a look at her, she's a slob. Rosie failed. I'm happy about it.
That feud continues to this day. He also has a rather disturbing habit of saying bizarre and, some would say, rather creepy things in public about his own daughter, Ivanka.
I've said that if Ivanka weren't my daughter, perhaps I'd be dating her. You know?
Stop it! Oh, it's so weird.
Ivanka, what's the favorite thing you have in common with your father?
Either real estate or golf.
Donald, with your daughter?
Well, I was going to say sex, but I can't relate that.
Legendary British television personality Selena Scott said of Trump, "Everything you need to know about Donald Trump can be found in the way he treats women. But there are also other disturbing patterns that repeat itself time and time again in Donald Trump's life. For instance, in 2011, not long after the conspiracy talk of President Obama and his birth certificate had died down, Trump brought it back up, saying that he had his doubts about whether Obama was born in the United States. After months and years of back-and-forth conspiratorial nonsense that did not hurt the president, but instead tainted the credibility of those who opposed him, the president released his birth certificate, to which Trump remained unmoved, referring to it as the so-called birth certificate, or whatever it was, end quote. Nowadays, Donald Trump refuses to address this issue.
So I knew you were going to ask that question.
Well, because
and you know what I'll say?
I
don't talk about that anymore. I don't want to answer the question.
But in just a few short months later, he found another issue with another birth certificate. How much of a winner is Donald Trump? Does he, in fact, always win? As a rule, losers don't have their names on things. And that is one reason Donald Trump has always loved to put his name on everything. To the Donald, having your name on things proves you're a winner. And he really likes to be considered a winner.
We will have so much winning if I get elected that you may get bored with winning.
That's why there has been, at one time or another, the Trump Tower, the Trump Plaza, Trump Place, Trump Palace, Trump Shuttle, Trump Vodka, Trump Steaks, Trump Casinos, and Trump University, just to name a few. Yet, because of his father's fortune, Trump was worth about $40 million in 1974. Another future billionaire, Warren Buffett, was also worth about $40 million in 1974. Today, Forbes lists Trump's wealth at $3.9 billion. Bloomberg has it at 2.9. Had Donald Trump done nothing with that seed money from his father except invested in an index fund based on the S&P 500 index and reinvested the dividends, he'd be worth twice as much as reported by Bloomberg and 50% more than Forbes, or about $6 billion today. By comparison, Warren Buffett, who also started out with $40 million, is today worth $67 billion. In fairness, Trump himself claims he's worth more than that. He's worth $10 billion. Even so, Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, and many others who started from scratch, started their businesses with nothing but a dream, have amassed many times more wealth than Donald Trump. Now, whether it's $2.9 or $10 billion, that is a lot of money. And by anyone's standards, extremely, even unbelievably successful. But this is just to compare the rhetoric with the actual result. So does Donald J. Trump always win? Well, if you're asking him, the answer is emphatically yes.
It's, as you and I were discussing, it's become the number one attraction in New York, the Trump Tower. The best hotel casino anywhere in the world. The biggest gross in the history of the gaming business. Said to be the greatest yacht in the world.
The finest transportation operation anywhere in this country.
The largest building privately financed ever built in the world.
The biggest selling book, or one of them, of the decade.
The best apartments in the world.
This has really turned out to be almost mystical. It's been great.
But one of the dangers of putting your name on everything is that if that one thing with your name on it fails, everyone knows it. Trump, the game, didn't sell. It was discontinued in 1 year. Trump Airlines, the Trump Shuttle, which he purchased from Eastern Airlines, never turned a profit and defaulted on its loans and ceased operation in 3 years. Trump Vodka began in 2006 with the slogan, "Success Distilled." Donald Trump believed it would become the most ordered drink in the nation. It shut down production in 2011 due to lack of interest. Trump Entertainment Resorts, made up of 3 Trump-owned casinos all in Atlantic City, filed for bankruptcy for the 4th time in 2014. And Trump has pulled out of Atlantic City. Trump Magazine ceased publication after a year and a half. Trump Steaks...
When it comes to great steaks, I've just raised the stakes. Trump steaks are the world's greatest steaks, and I mean that in every sense of the word.
Trump Steaks, out of business. Trump Steakhouse in Las Vegas closed down to 51 health code violations, including serving 5-month-old duck. Trump University opened in 2005, closed in 2012. It and Trump are now being sued by the New York Attorney General for $40 million for fraud. Trump Mortgage. It opened in 2006, with Trump asking CNBC, who knows more about financing than me? But since it closed a year and a half later, perhaps the answer is more people than he thought. Then there was the USFL, the United States Football League. The league started in 1983 as a spring, much more established, beloved alternative to the fall and winter NFL. In 1984, Trump had the opportunity to purchase the USFL franchise, the New Jersey Generals, which he snapped up. The league featured future Hall of Famers Steve Young and Reggie White, as well as superstars Herschel Walker, Jim Kelly, and Doug Flutie. Virtually everyone believed the league should stay put, playing its schedule in the spring and not try to go head-to-head against the wildly popular NFL in the fall. Everyone believed it, except Donald J. Trump. Trump wasn't happy being part of a second-rate league.
I never liked the idea of spring football. Everything I do is sort of at the highest level.
Why did he buy into the league? Trump with the USFL always struck me as somebody that couldn't get into the NFL, and he was so desperate to own a football team. This was the next thing. It was like a guy who all the Beamers that he wanted were sold out, so he goes to the Saab dealership. It's like, hey, give me a Saab. Give me any Saab. I don't care. And then he complains about the Saab. It's like, you bought a Saab.
Trump forced the issue. The USFL wrapped up their 85 season and decided to play in the fall of 86. There were a couple of problems, one of which was that the NFL owned broadcast rights on all three networks. There was nowhere for the USFL to go. So Trump took the NFL to court in an antitrust monopoly suit and won $1. $1. It was the death of the USFL, and most involved in the league blamed Donald J. Trump for its demise. In the late 1980s, Donald Trump turned his attention to a new prize that he desperately wanted. He wanted to buy the Taj Mahal Casino in Atlantic City. The owner had run out of money and left it unfinished. Trump swooped in and promised the banks he could secure the financing. The banks didn't want the casino financed with junk bonds, and Trump assured them that he would never use junk bonds. What happened? The Donald financed the Trump Taj Mahal with junk bonds. Being a businessman who never fails, Trump didn't let a little debt cause him concern. And in 1990, he hired Michael Jackson, the biggest music star in the world, to perform at the huge opening of the Trump Taj Mahal.
I have Michael at the Taj Mahal. He's my friend. He's a tremendous talent, and it's really my honor. It's a big day for me.
Later, Mr. Trump's chickens came home to roost.
It was his biggest deal ever. He called it the eighth wonder of the world. But it was also probably his biggest mistake. A billion-dollar building built on borrowed money, junk bonds, with the whopping interest rate of 14%. Trump was now $1.4 billion in debt on his casinos alone.
Drowning in massive debt and facing financial ruin, Trump had a few options other than his second bankruptcy.
Trump hotels and casinos filed for bankruptcy protection 3 times in 6 years.
Okay, let me explain it to you. Very simple.
Isn't that a failure?
Not really. I mean, look, it worked out very well for me. It was very successful. I then levered the company, so I had a relatively small piece of the company.
Wait a second, you were chairman of the board.
I was chairman, but I didn't run the company. I had nothing to do with running the company. Management.
You were paid $2 million a year.
Excuse me, I didn't run the company. I'm just telling you.
So what were you paid $2 million a year for?
Excuse me. Because of my genius, okay?
There didn't seem to be a lot of wins during this time period for Donald, and in fact, his finances were crashing down all around him.
Suddenly, everything was for sale. Things got so bad, Trump tried to slip his private plane out of its hangar without paying the storage fee. The state police were called. Clearly, order had to be restored, and for now, some semblance of it has been. Even Donald's father has helped out. A $3 million purchase of chips in one of his son's casinos went toward paying interest to bondholders, pacifying some of them at least for a time.
It appeared that both personally and professionally, Donald Trump was struggling. Things were in such upheaval for the Donald that Barbara Walters questioned his business acumen.
Being on the verge of bankruptcy, being bailed out by the banks,
well, you don't have to
skating on thin ice and almost drowning, that's a businessman to be admired.
You say on the verge of bankruptcy, Barbara, and you talk on the verge, and you listen to what people are saying.
I talk to your bankers.
Well, that's fine. And what do they say? I mean, depending on which banker you're talking to, what do they say? The deal I worked out is something that I think is good for everybody. Nobody knows how bad the economy is. I listen to the people on Wall Street talking about the possibility of a recession. We're not in a recession. We're in a depression.
Trump was able in this case to secure a bank bailout. However, over the years, Trump has racked up $4.7 billion in bankruptcies. He says it's a successful way to use the system. And over the course of his professional life, it is estimated that Donald Trump has lost up to $6 billion. Financing wasn't the only issue Trump has encountered in Atlantic City. When he wanted to expand Trump Plaza and build parking lots for limousines, there was a slight problem in his way. A little elderly woman named Vera Koking. She owned the home for 35 years, right where Donald Trump envisioned putting a parking lot. Realizing that Bob Guccione had tried unsuccessfully to take her property over the 10 years before, Donald Trump paid her a visit. He offered her Neil Diamond concert tickets. Vera had never heard of Neil Diamond, so he offered her money. He offered to buy her home. Vera hadn't been interested in the $1 million offer from Guccione a decade before, and that day she wasn't tempted by Trump's offer. Enter the Casino Authority. They offered the 70-year-old widow $250,000 for the property. Or, better yet, they threatened. They threatened they would evict her through court, through eminent domain. She again refused to sell her home that she loved, and where she had lived since 1961. The Casino Authority and Donald Trump tried to extract Vera, but lost the court battle. To this day, Trump remains unapologetic about trying to take someone's private property against their will.
I think eminent domain for massive projects, for instance, you're going to create thousands of jobs, and you have somebody that's in the way, and you pay that person far more. Don't forget, eminent domain, they get a lot of money. And you need a house in a certain location because you're going to build this massive development that's going to employ thousands of people, or you're going to build a factory that without this little house, you can't build the factory. I think eminent domain is fine.
Donald Trump is obviously not the worst businessman in America, despite his failures he's experienced. He has also had many huge businesses and personal successes. However, he has claimed that he should be president because he always wins and will continue to win every time. Trump has spoken about the national debt of $19 trillion, yet he was willing to risk everything he had on junk bonds. Trump currently insists that he is a die-hard Republican, even conservative. But what about his past? He readily admits he didn't always believe as he does now. So what has changed? What, if anything, has changed? What was his pivot point? Who is Donald Trump? This week, we've tried to find out by comparing his rhetoric to reality. Ideologically, over the years, Trump has been a political chameleon at best, changing party affiliation at least 5 times since the late 1980s. He registered for the first time in New York as a Republican in July 1987, only to dump the GOP more than a decade later for the Reform Party in October 1999. This was the party of Ross Perot, Jesse Ventura, and Ralph Nader. In fact, while a member of the Reform Party, Trump put together an exploratory committee and briefly considered a run for president in 2000. In August 2001, the billionaire enrolled as a Democrat. 8 years later, 2009, he returned to the Republican Party. That lasted 2 years. In 2011, he marked the box, "I do not wish to enroll in a party," becoming an independent. And then, in 2012, Trump again became a Republican. During the 2016 election cycle, Trump was asking the citizens of the United States of America to forget his past and pay attention only to what he was saying at any given time. The problem is with that, what he says at any given time changes with every given time.
So it's very interesting.
What Donald Trump has said in the past is essentially everything. He has literally held contrasting positions on every major issue. Let's start with health care. Trump called health care a birthright.
A liberal in health care. We have to take care of people that are sick.
Birthright health care is something Trump believed in 1999. But he still says he'll ensure everyone and the government will pay for it.
So how do you fix it?
There's many different ways, by the way. Everybody's got to be covered. This is an un-Republican thing for me to say, because a lot of times they say, no, the lower 25%, they can't afford private. But
universal health care.
I am going to take care of everybody. I don't care if it costs me votes or not. Everybody's going to be taken care of much better than they're taken care of now.
The uninsured person is going to be taken care of.
They're going to be taken care of.
How?
I would make a deal with existing hospitals to take care of people. And you know what? This is probably...
Make a deal. Who pays for it?
The government's going to pay for it.
That was Donald Trump on 60 Minutes in September 2015. Trump, at this hour, still supports universal health care. The question is, how will the government pay for it? Perhaps with the special tax Trump proposed on wealthy Americans, where he would simply take 14.25% of everything a wealthy American owned.
Tax people of wealth, of great wealth, people over 10 million by 14.25%. This tax would raise approximately $5.7 trillion, which happens to be our national debt. It would be a one-time tax, 14.25%, against people with a net worth of over $10 million or more. It would pay off in its entirety the national debt of $5.7 trillion.
Supposedly, Trump is no longer in favor of that one-time wealth tax. But he does like progressive tax rates, sort of. In this interview, he contradicts himself on the flat tax in the same sentence on Fox News.
It has to be simplified. It's too complicated. You need 195 IQ to be able to figure out a tax return. So we're going to simplify. Now, that's the easiest in terms of getting it done. Later on, if we go to a flat tax, that's something else. But in the meantime, we have to simplify and we have to reduce taxes, in particular for the middle class.
Donald, if you were going to do a flat tax, what would the magic number be?
Well, the magic number is a very complicated number. I've seen them from 15% to 20%. Nobody knows if it works. And the one problem I have with a flat tax is that rich people are paying the same as people that are making very little money. And I think there should be a graduation.
For people who believe that 10% of $1 million and 10% of $10,000 are the same number, a calculator might be helpful. In 2015, with the Planned Parenthood recordings then being released showing the sale of baby body parts, abortion rose to the top of the national consciousness. Where did Trump stand on abortion in the past and today? Not only did he support abortion in the past, he favored partial birth abortion.
Would President Trump ban partial birth abortion?
Well, look, I'm very pro-choice. And again, it may be a little bit of a New York background because there is some different attitude in different parts of the country. And, you know, I was raised in New York and grew up and work and everything else in New York City.
But you would not ban it?
No.
Or ban partial birth abortion?
No, I am pro-choice in every respect.
As you heard, Trump himself brought up this New York attitude and background as a reason for his pro-abortion stance. Yet, at the fifth GOP debate in 2015, he didn't seem to understand what a New York attitude was. For conservatives, other than the right to life for unborn children, the Second Amendment may be the most important issue when selecting a candidate. Of the constitutional right to keep and bear arms, Trump does have a New York State gun license and owns 2 pistols. But, he says, Republicans need to be more flexible on reforms. Quote, Democrats want to confiscate all guns, which is a dumb idea because only the law-abiding citizens would turn in their guns and the bad guys would be the only ones left armed. The Republicans walk the NRA line and refuse to even limit restrictions. I generally oppose gun control, but I do support the ban on assault weapons, and I also support a slightly longer waiting period to purchase a gun. Even on Trump's supposedly signature conservative policy, immigration, Trump favors a path to citizenship for illegal aliens.
We want people of great talent to be in the United States, to work here, and ultimately to become a citizen.
His loyalties in the past seem to lie mostly with progressive Democrats. He's been a big donor of some of the worst politicians in America. Harry Reid, Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi. He's given to Anthony Weiner and Hillary Clinton.
Hillary's a great friend of mine. Her husband is a great friend of mine. They're fantastic people. I mean, you know the thing, they get a bad knock. She's a very nice woman. People think tough, and I guess she's tough, but she's a very nice woman, and he's a very nice guy. We know all about the smarts and how smart they are, and all, but they are good people.
High praise for a woman he said he would run against. But Hillary is not the only one who received the Donald's approval. Here's what he said about Barack Obama in December 2008.
I think he's doing great. I think Hillary's a great appointment. I think that some of the others are just great appointments. I know Lisa Jackson very well because I do a lot of business in New Jersey. She's a brilliant person, a great environmental person, and that's going to be an amazing appointment you watch. So I think he's doing a great job.
There is no doubt people can and do change their minds on issues. Ronald Reagan was a Democrat during his early days in Hollywood. But Reagan shared his pivot point, the things that turned him around on the issues. And Reagan could articulate the reasons for his current policies. There was a sense when he spoke that he truly believed what he was saying, that he believed in the United States Constitution and small government principles. Can America say the same about Donald J. Trump? Tomorrow, we talk about his transition from Barack Obama's doing a really great job to the he wasn't born in this country, and then to the present. On December 15th, 2008, Donald Trump spoke in glowing terms of President Barack Obama.
I think he's doing great. I think Hillary's a great appointment. I think that some of the others are just great appointments. I think he's doing a great job.
He said much the same thing on many other occasions. He called him a strong leader and, quote, just what we need. In April 2009, in a blog post, Trump wrote, Trump rates Obama's first 100 days as a strong B+. In 2009, in a piece for Bloomberg Business, Trump said he would hire Obama. Quote, overall, I believe he's done a very good job, end quote. He went on, I'd hire him. He's handled the tremendous mess he walked into very well. He still has a daunting task ahead of him, but he appears to be equal to the challenge. He's kept his eye on both national and international issues, and visits to foreign countries have shown him to be warmly received, which is certainly a change from the last administration. I believe he should pay more attention to OPEC and what's going on over there, but overall, I believe he's done a very good job, end quote. In September 2010, Trump was asked by CNN's Wolf Blitzer if Obama has saved us from another depression. Trump's response, quote, I do agree, end quote. Then, on April 7th, 2011, Donald Trump is suddenly singing quite a different tune. He told USA Today,
3 weeks ago when I started, I thought he was probably born in this country, and now I really have a much bigger doubt than I did before.
But based on what?
And you know what? His grandmother in Kenya said he was born in Kenya, and she was there and witnessed the birth, okay? He doesn't have a birth certificate, or he hasn't shown it. He has what's called a certificate of live birth. That is something that's easy to get. When you want a birth certificate, it's very hard to get. A certificate of live birth is not even signed by anybody. I saw his. I read it very carefully. Doesn't have a serial number, doesn't have a signature. There's not even a signature.
Do you believe he's
I'm
lying?
starting to think that he was not born here. I would like to have him show his birth certificate. And can I be honest with you? I hope he can. Because if he can't, and if he wasn't born in this country, which is a real possibility, I'm not saying it happened, I'm saying it's a real possibility, much greater than I thought 2 or 3 weeks ago, then he has pulled one of the great cons in the history of politics.
1 week later, he told Sean Hannity,
look, he's been a horrible president. I always said the worst president was Jimmy Carter. Guess what? Jimmy Carter goes to second place. Barack Obama has been the worst president ever. The history of this country, Barack Obama is number one.
So how did Barack Obama go from doing a great job, being the man we need right now, a strong leader, a guy who saved us from depression, to the number one worst president in history in such a short time in the mind of Donald J. Trump? It could be the same reason Trump has turned on everyone else he once really liked, even loved, but now considers them a loser, washed up, irrelevant, or a no talent. Maybe Obama said something unflattering about him. Maybe he got in the way of a business deal. Or maybe it was just politically expedient for Donald Trump, who is now preparing to run for president of the United States. Only Donald Trump himself knows the answer. But whatever the reason, Obama struck back at him, publicly mocking Trump at a White House Correspondents' Dinner.
Now, I know that he's taken some flack lately, but no one is happier, no one is prouder to put this birth certificate matter to rest than the Donald. And that's because he can finally get back to focusing on the issues that matter. Like, did we fake the moon landing? What really happened in Roswell? And where are Biggie and Tupac?
Eventually, Obama produced his birth certificate, which Trump and others in the birther movement still believed and continue to believe is fake. And now, Trump flatly refuses to discuss the multiple years he devoted to Obama's birth certificate.
Is Donald Trump honest when he says that Barack Obama isn't a legitimate president?
So I knew you were
that's a good question because
I didn't say you couldn't. I didn't say you couldn't. I knew you
can't stop me
because I should really no I can't. I should not tell you this, but I do watch you a lot. So I knew you were going to ask that question.
Well, because
and you know what I'll say? I don't talk about that anymore.
Something else Donald Trump doesn't talk about anymore are the liberal and progressive policies that he espoused for most of his life, which we had covered. And in some cases, he still espouses. But in June 2015, Trump, after considering running for president nearly every 4 years since 1988, tossed his hat into the Republican ring.
I am officially running for president of the United States, and we are going to make our country great again.
It was an interesting development, considering that in 2004, Trump told Wolf Blitzer,
Well, you'd be shocked if I said that in many cases I probably identify more as a Democrat. And I think you'd probably be shocked.
On social issues?
You know, it's interesting. And I've been around for a long time. And it just seems that the economy does better under the Democrats.
The news that Trump used to identify more as a Democrat certainly didn't come as a surprise to Hillary Clinton.
He was basically a Democrat before he was a Republican. And he was, somebody that we all knew in New York. And he was supportive of Democrats. He was supportive of a lot of the causes that, I cared about and that people I knew cared about. And so, now he seems to have taken another road.
For his part, Trump has actually used his relationship with Democrats as a selling point for his candidacy.
I've always had a good relationship with Nancy Pelosi. I've never had a problem. Reid's going to be gone. I always had a decent relationship with Reid, although lately, obviously, I haven't been dealing with him, so he'll actually use my name as the ultimate, as the ultimate of the billionaires in terms of, people you don't want. But I always had a great relationship with Harry Reid, and frankly, if I weren't running for office, I'd be able to deal with her, I'd be able to deal with Reid, I'd be able to deal with anybody. But I think I'd be able to get along very well with Nancy Pelosi and just about everybody. Hey, look, I think I'll be able to get along well with Schumer, Chuck Schumer. I was always very good with Schumer. I was close to Schumer in many ways.
Of course Trump can get along with these progressive Democrats because he's been one, and he has donated a lot of money to all of them, including Hillary Clinton. After over 7 years of Barack Obama's fundamental transformation of the United States of America, Donald Trump seems to have tapped into a wave of angry populism. His signature policy plan involves immigration.
I would build a great wall, and nobody builds walls better than me, believe me. And I'll build them very inexpensively. I will build a great, great wall on our southern border, and I will have Mexico pay for that wall. Mark my words.
Matt Lauer asked him for specifics on how he plans to achieve deporting 11 million illegal aliens and forcing Mexico to build a wall.
Specifically, because you used the word specifically, okay? Just getting 11 million illegal or undocumented immigrants out of the country, transportation, housing them in the process.
Management.
What's the specific
and you
plan?
understand, I think, maybe perhaps better than that. It's called We Have a Country.
As for their part, Mexico has repeatedly and vehemently responded that they have no intention of ever paying for a wall between the United States and Mexico. We've discussed his tabloid and his progressive past. But where does Donald Trump, the Republican candidate, really stand? Well, he says he loves free trade. He calls himself a free trader. But he also wants massive tariffs on China, Mexico, and others. He hates Obamacare, but he himself says that he will bring universal health care into reality. He wants to deport 11 million illegals, but he also says you can't possibly kick 11 million illegals out of the country. He considers himself pro-Second Amendment, but he favors an assault weapons ban and longer waiting periods. He claims to be for personal freedoms and private property, but loves and has utilized eminent domain to take private property away from owners against their will. He says Ted Cruz was a nice guy, a friend of his, and now he says he's a nasty guy who no one likes. He called Ben Carson a loser and a pedophile, and now calls him a man he deeply respects. We could spend a month exploring Donald J. Trump. After all, he is a captivating individual. He is outspoken. He's entertaining. He's unlike anyone who has ever run for the President of the United States. But is that a good thing? And is that enough?